Hi everyone, this is Miss Carballo, and today we're going to go over the topic 10 proportions test. Hopefully you have your workspace to kind of check your work and um, your process and compare it to the steps that I'm going to show you. If not, maybe get it from me so that you can kind of compare to see what you were doing wrong. But this was number one. Basketball concession stand sold 327 drinks in 2 games. Which proportion could be used to make the best estimate for the number of drinks that will be sold for 10 games. So when we went through this unit, I told you guys to set up the words, so drinks sold and number of games. And then we would set up 327 drinks, and that would go on top. And then games would be 2. And you would set that equal to, and this says 10 games, so that 10 would go in the bottom. And our X that we're going to find would be up here, how many drinks, the number of drinks sold. Now, this problem, 327 over 2, is not any of my answers. It's not any of those options over there. So if you cross multiply, this would be 2x, and this would be 3,270. So no matter which way you set up your proportion, remember that when you cross multiply, they would be the same. So the same answer. Like, remember, everyone was setting up their own proportions their own way, as long as when you cross multiply. This would give us 327x equals 20. So that's not going to be the same as the way we're setting it up. This one would be 10x. So already I know it's wrong because this says 2x. This one would be 327x. So I already know that those won't be the same as mine. This is the only one that when I cross multiply will give me the same equation to solve as the one I wanted to set up. Like, this is how I think it should be set up. So the correct answer for this first one is D. All right, let's look at number 2. Which of the following is not a true proportion? So for this one, you just needed to cross multiply, because a proportion is when two fractions are equivalent to each other. And so we learned that when you do this times this, it should equal this times this in order to be a proportion. So that is true. That letter A is true. This is 21. 21 times 1 is 21, so this one is true. 2 times 25 is 50. 5 times 10 is 50. So this one is true. So this one should be the only one that is not true. 12 times 7 is 84. And 14 times 4 is 56. And those are not equal. So D is not a proportion. All right, number 3, Luis is on a road trip. During one part of the trip, he drives 275 miles in 5 hours. What was his average rate of speed for 1 hour? So this is one where you should have set up proportion. I'm going to do miles to hours. You could do hours over miles. He drove 275 miles in 5 hours. So that's how I set mine up to match my words. And now I'm looking at what is his average rate of speed for 1 hour. Always look at the word after the number. That usually helps decide where it goes. And that 1 hour needs to be in the same ratio as this order. So I'm going to put that on the bottom. And then I'm going to cross multiply to find his average speed, how many miles per hour. This is where you cross multiply and you write your answer down. 5 times x is 5x. 275 times 1 is 275. Solve a simple one-step equation. We've been doing this all year. Divide both sides by 5. And x equals 55. So his average was about 55 miles per hour. All right, question number 4. So Jill found a 3-foot pole had a 4-foot shadow. At the same time, a tree had a 24-foot shadow. So how tall is the tree? All right, so this is a shadow to height problem. So those are the words we're going to use. And it always helps, that's the order of the ratio. And it always helps if one of them is a pole, and one is the tree. So keep those fractions together as you set this up too. So the pole was 3 feet and it had a 4-foot shadow. So 3 feet tall, 4-foot shadow. Now look at the tree. This is the tree's shadow. So that 24 is going to go with the tree's shadow. And I'm going to cross multiply to find the tree's height. So 4x equals 24 times 3, which is 72. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 4 to solve that equation, and x equals 18. So the tree is 18 feet tall. So remember to set up your fraction. Could you have done height over shadow? Sure, right? And then you're just going to flip these two over also. Okay, let's go to number 5. Which of the following is W? All right, so for this one, it's not a word problem. You're just going to cross multiply. 1.4 times W equals negative 2.1 times 4. Negative 8.4. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 1.4. And that equals negative 6. All right, let's go to number 6. Christopher's map of Fairfax County, 1 inch represents a half of a mile. If Christopher measures 5.5 inches between the two cities, how many miles would this represent? So I'm going to do inches over miles. So this 1 inch is the ratio with a half of a mile. And I'm going to turn that 1/2 into a decimal. And then 5.5 inches is on the map. My inches ratio is in the top. And how many miles would this represent? That's my x. That's what I'm going to cross multiply to find. So I'm going to do 1 times x, which is easy. That's 1x. And 5.5 times 0.5, which is 2.75. So I'm finding how many miles would this represent? That's 2.75 miles in real life, if this is the ratio of 1 inch to a half of a mile, and this is the proportion we set up. Remember, there's a lot of different ways to solve these problems, and this proportion setup is just one way, but we did want you to set up your proportions this way for this unit to kind of practice this new strategy, right? Kevin mixes paint using 8 ounces of yellow for every 3 ounces of white. So 8 ounces of yellow to 3 ounces of white. At this rate, how many ounces of white paint would be mixed with 24 ounces of yellow? So 24 ounces of yellow, always look at the words right after, goes in the top, and I'm going to figure out how much white paint that would be. So I'm going to do 8x, and then I'm going to do 3 times 24, which is 72. I'm going to divide both sides by 8. So x equals 9. I'm going to need 9 ounces of white paint for every 24 ounces of the yellow paint. All right, last question. Stephanie ran 3 miles in 30 minutes. So I'm going to do miles to minutes, and I'm going to do 3 miles to 30 minutes. At this rate, what's the total number of minutes it will take Stephanie to run 2 miles? So that 2 miles goes on the top because I need to keep it in ratio, the right order, right? And I'm going to cross multiply to figure out this x. So I'm going to do 30 times 2 is 60. 3 times x is 3x. I'm going to divide both sides by 3. And then 20 equals x. So I hope most of you just put 20 in there. I think you could have put 20 minutes, but I think just putting the number is always safe with these enter your answers into the box. All right, guys, hope that helped. Let me know if you have any questions before you do the retake. Make sure you've seen your workspace so you can compare it to the work in here before you do the retake as well.